Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, NWSL analyst and broadcaster. On today's episode, we've got a lot for you. It's a massive recap episode. We're going to recap the Women's Cup final between Racing Louisville FC and Bayern Munich. We will recap the Women's International Champions Cup final between Portland Thorns FC and Olympique Lyonnais, and recap all of the weekend's NWSL action for you all. Quick reminder before we get into all that, though, we've been getting so many great questions from you all on our Apple Podcast review, so I want to let you know to keep those coming. Leave a question with a 5-star review for us, and we will answer that for you on one of our upcoming segments. And I just want to remind you that you can find us on Twitter at Attacking Third, and that you can watch all of the full-time NWSL game highlights at our YouTube channel. So go to youtube.com/attacking third and subscribe to our YouTube page so none of you miss a thing. Lisa, so much that we got to get into, and we have to do this after traveling. We have had an active weekend ourselves. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm home. I travel a lot, so it's typical and traditional for me, but this was a personal travel this weekend, which is always fun. Got to go to a wedding, a former teammate wedding, so congrats to Anne-Marie and Mike. But yeah, Marquette weddings are always fun. And Sandra, you are now back in Chicago. Welcome home.
Yes. You know what? It's sad. That's the only sad part of this weekend is that we didn't get to cross paths. That's really the only sad part. You came on through to Chicago, and I had to head out off to Portland to take in some of this awesome soccer action that we're about to get into. But I'm doing all right. I'm excited to talk about this. I feel like I've been doing this week. The week leading up to this weekend of games was so chaotic in the best of ways. There was so much soccer that was happening, and it was so wonderful. It was just delightful to have all of these teams dominating so much of the news cycle about the soccer news cycle that took place. So I'm delighted to just get on here and chat about things, because it's like, now we did all this watching, we did all this reviewing, we did all this analysis, and now we want to recap them and chat about them. So let's get into it. Let's start off with these big international tournaments. We had the Women's International Champions Cup final take place. So we had a couple matches going on. There was a third place match between FC Barcelona and Houston Dash, with FC Barcelona taking that one, defeating Houston Dash 3-2. And then the title match between Portland Thorns FC and Olympique Lyonnais. This match, Lisa, was billed and hyped so highly, just talking about, two titans of the game, two teams with big winning cultures in their respective domestic leagues, going head to head finally. This particular tournament is very intriguing for a number of reasons, because part of the criteria in the Women's International Champions Cup is that the teams that are involved, it's typically 2 European sides and 2 NWSL sides, and the teams that are involved have to have a championship behind them within the last, I believe it's 18 months or so. I could be getting that off, but that's why we had the 2020 Challenge Cup Houston Dash in there, the 2021 Portland Challenge Cup Portland Thorns, and then Lyon coming off of their domestic club title, and then FC Barcelona coming off their Champions League. So it was a real treat to take a look at all these teams going head to head. But this final, with Portland Thorns coming out on top, I mean, it had everything. Quite frankly, it was so much fun to take in and watch. And Morgan Weaver coming on as a late game sub for Portland, and like the 82nd minute, and then just like 4 minutes later getting the game winning goal, and Portland defeat Lyon 1-0 in front of their home crowd in Providence Park to win their second trophy of 2021. The Thorns are doing things, Lisa. Big game.
Huge game. And you mentioned Morgan Weaver. I mean, what a way to return to the game after a bit of an injury stint for her. But the competition in this WICC tournament was phenomenal. You got to witness it firsthand, which I'm very jealous, but that's okay. We'll talk with some bosses and I'll get there next time. But it's really good competition. And even honestly, like, yeah, the final is always fun and it was good games, but to watch Houston against Barcelona, a really good game. I was impressed with Houston and their ability to hang in this match. They would go down a goal and then they got one back from Katie Naughton and then go down to one, then Shea Groom, she got the goal. So Houston was able to go up 2-1 over Barcelona, and then Barcelona just coming back and outplaying them towards the end of that match. But overall, the competition really good and really fun to watch between the Europeans and the Americans. What else did you take away from the Portland game now that Portland has won their second trophy of the year? Like, go Thorns. We knew they were a powerhouse, but man, fun to watch them.
Yeah, this team, just sort of bridging this into NWSL regular season, because the game that they played against Houston Dash, when we previously chatted about this, or in a previous episode, was that game didn't count for any type of NWSL fixture or result in regards to the regular season. So watching this Thorn team during this sort of mini tournament taking place in the middle of the regular season, they were currently in first place. They still are, even sort of having this bye week while they were participating in this event. It's we got to see more of that depth, and we've been talking about that already this year, Lisa, but this just cemented it, because in the final, we got to see for the Thorns the return of their Olympians. So we saw Lindsay Herrera come onto this pitch. We saw Crystal Dunn come into this game. We saw Christine Sinclair get a run out. And like late into that second half, you saw really kind of help change and shake things up a little bit. Their presence on the pitch allowed a player like Sophia Smith to continue building on what she was already doing in this match, which was really causing a headache out on that wing for Lyon. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, I'm sure you guys heard it on the stream for those of you who watched it, but there was a lot of booing going on there with some of the officiating, just some of the no calls that had happened. And you know what? She was relentless. It didn't matter that Smith didn't essentially get those prior calls. She was still, her work rate was just like relentless. But in these two games that the Thorns played in this tournament, whether it was a Houston or Lyon, we got to see so many of their players. And we had talked a lot during the regular season, especially during the Olympic stretch of the regular season, that this is the deepest team in the league. They've got players who have been stepping up and making sure that their first place standing remains while their Olympians are overseas and then come back into play. And then they all sort of connect together and sort of just continue to build on what they've been doing and collect another trophy in 2021. So not what they're going to do is come off of this game, roll back into their regular season, and still have the NWSL Shield in their sights and a place standing to be in the playoffs. So I mean, there's still a lot of regular season left, and the table is very, very tight, and we'll get to that more at the end of the episode. But more than just the narrative of like, oh, an American team versus a European team, the Thorns are showing that they are just a force this year, full stop, period.
And to not put so much pressure on the Olympians when they return, that they need to make back lost time while they were gone and get 3 points. That's what I think the depth shows for Portland and the Thorns and their bench, that their roster really took it upon themselves individually, each player, to say, I'm going to make a difference on this team this season. That way players don't have to come back from Tokyo Olympics and take all that on their shoulders themselves. Fantastic. The rest of the season for Portland, everyone just watch them. Tune into all of their games, because it's really fun to watch them play and to see how many players they have that they can throw into different positions. And Mark Parsons, and he wants to go out with the bang, Sandra. He wants to go out with the bang.
We'll see. It's looking pretty good so far. When you're laying out all the potential things an NWSL club can win this year, all the potential titles and trophies. Right now, the Portland Thorns are 2 for 2. So we'll see what else they've got coming up. The Women's Cup final, another example of American sides versus European sides, an inaugural tournament here taking place in 2021, hosted by Racing Louisville FC. We chatted a little bit about some of the previous matches that took place, the sort of semifinal format with two teams going off against each other for the inaugural cup. So it ended up coming out to Racing Louisville FC facing off against German giants Bayern Munich. And what a match. This one ended up going to penalty kicks to determine the inaugural winner. We had both these teams play out to a 2-2 draw in regulation. And due to the rules, it just went straight to penalty kicks. And then Racing Louisville, and behind their hero, Katie Lund, their goalkeeper, Katie Lund, ended up lifting the inaugural Women's Cup 6-7 in penalty kicks over Bayern. Lisa, where do you even start in this type of match?
I guess congratulations to Louisville because yes, they won. It's their they were playing at home. It's their inaugural season. It was the inaugural tournament played in Louisville, but they did not deserve to win this game based on the run of play. And yeah, a lot of credit to Katie Lund, who did well. I'll break down the game a little bit for you, Sandra, and listeners. Louisville is going into a stretch where they have 5 games or like their most amount of games in 15 days. So this was their second game. They came off of a Wednesday match. And to start this match against Bayern, there was 8 new players in the starting lineup for Racing Louisville. So player management and minute management is really big in the league right now. We saw it with Chicago. You see it a lot of times with these players, but to have so many different players starting the game is a different look for a team. They have to find that rhythm. And Bayern was all offense, especially in the first half. Every single player on the Racing Louisville team should go give Michelle Betos a big hug or a high five because she saved Racing in that first half. I think at halftime, Bayern had 7 shots, 7 corners, and Racing Louisville was zeros across the boards for offense in terms of any momentum that they had going forward. And Michelle Betos, she took a beating throughout this game. She played full 90 on Wednesday. She played full 90 last Sunday in the NWSL regular season games. And this game, because she was put under so much pressure from Bayern, she ended up getting injured and coming out. So Katie Lund making her NWSL debut, coming in the 71st-ish minute, 70th minute, towards the middle of the second half. And her first professional minutes, she ends up taking the 11th penalty kick and winning it all for Racing Louisville. So it's fun to see that aspect of the resiliency from Racing Louisville. 9 minutes of stoppage time added on at the end of this game goes to show how many fouls were called, how many stoppage times were happening throughout this game. But Bayern looked to be the better team, way more offensive looks going into it. And then, yes, Racing did get goals. It ended 2-2 before penalty kicks. But this game was an anomaly for Bayern, and Racing just toughed it out towards the end, which the endurance of Racing Louisville was really evident in this match.
That final penalty kick shootout, I'm just going to set a little scene for people who might not have been aware. So there were a number of us, because again, there was so much soccer that was happening, but there were a number of us in the Providence Park press box taking in this game in between the Houston and FC Barcelona match. And that penalty kick shootout just sort of conveniently kind of started to roll out during the halftime of that match. So we were able to settle in and take this game and watching this performance from Katie Lund, my goodness, just outstanding, phenomenal. Like that's the type of stuff that your club starts to just, build its culture on a little bit, and it's so exciting to see that really like a first year expansion club in Louisville it has something like this to sort of point at and just start sort of building that lore, right? Around their team. So it's just very, very exciting. And split these two big mini tournaments in this taking place in this window. I guess it's split. We have an American side that took the inaugural Women's Cup. Then we also see the Women's International Champions Cup go to the Portland Thorns. So there's a little bit of like, you're looking at those third place matches and you see Barcelona defeat Houston, you see PSG defeat Chicago, and naturally coming out of these types of events, you start hearing the chatter about that. You start hearing the discussion about American clubs versus European clubs, American style versus European style and all that. And there's lots of things to consider in that, especially as we came off of an Olympics, quite frankly, where you had a CONCACAF team in Canada winning the gold medal, United States winning the bronze, and Sweden getting the silver medal, and now having a couple of these matches for titles. And it was just cool. I don't want to like sit here and beat a dead horse, because this is something that will always come up during these types of things or international cycles. But it was just cool to see this type of stuff happening for the women's side of the game. I know that there's a lot of there's discourse about some of these matches taking place in the middle of the NWSL regular season, and on the other side of things, how it maybe is beneficial for European sides, because so many of these teams they're in preseason form. So there's also that counter argument. Well, these European sides are top flight clubs, but they're not really in form. So what type of team are you going up against? So it was very interesting to sort of see all the different dynamics coming out of both of these tournaments, because there were moments there, Lisa, where we saw, especially during the WICC tournament, where Portland Thorns side was, kind of fielding like a B or C lineup, against a kind of like an A star, like all-star lineup against FC Barcelona. So it just kind of was like give or take, you kind of give or take, and everyone's going to sort of have their opinions on it. And my opinion is just that I would like to see more of it and a more consistent thing. And I know a lot of us out there for years have been talking about how we want like a women's club World Cup. So maybe something like this, the more success it has, the more eyes it has on it, the more interest and attendance and everything that it kind of attracts. Maybe FIFA will take notice, and eventually there will be a Club World Cup.
Yeah, FIFA, we liked this. If you're listening out there, we want more of this. It was really cool. It was fun to see different styles of play and different tactics play out, and players matching up against players that they don't traditionally play against, and maybe they watch overseas or they have played against. But the teams that in the NWSL, they know each other, which makes for good competition because you have to switch things up. But yeah, the competition between the Europeans and the Americans, more please to see the different styles. And I think both sides learn so much about their own style of play, how they can get better, and also how to defend against something that they're not used to seeing in their opponents across the white line.
We're going to get into more NWSL action because we've got so much more soccer to talk about, believe it or not. But again, this is the time where we have to check in with each other, Lisa. So we have to take a quick break for hydration. So here's our hydration break, and we'll be back to recap NWSL action for everyone. Count them, tres NWSL matches that we got to recap, Lisa. We've got a doubleheader for Saturday, a single match for Sunday. Let's start at the top of the order here. North Carolina Courage facing off against Kansas City NWSL 4-0 by way of North Carolina. Statement game? I'm not too sure if I want to call it a statement game, but it was definitely lights out for North Carolina. We're talking about a little bit how teams are welcoming back their U.S. national team players, their Canadian internationals. and Lynn Williams having herself a game. I guess in terms of statement, maybe that's what it is. I have returned 4-0 against Kansas City NWSL. Lisa, I'm trying to think back to our previous episode, how we had this. Did we both have this going North Carolina's way?
I think we did.
I think we did too.
I don't honestly, I don't remember. I don't have it in my notes today. I forgot, but I think we both had North Carolina, and it's easy to say why. We knew Davina was back. We weren't sure about Lynn Williams heading into our preview episode, but Lynn Williams is back. Dynamic duo of Williams and Jess McDonald up top, combining and playing really well. Lynn Williams looks to be in good form. She starts this game with an early goal in about the 12th minute for North Carolina. A lot of credit to Carson Pickett and Merritt Mathias getting up the flanks for North Carolina. They've been tremendous all year, and they cannot be stopped and they cannot be slowed down to continuously send crosses in and give opportunities. Caitlin Rowland, starting goalkeeper for Kansas City, which was fun and good to see her there in the net. And another one, A-Rod, she gets a goal against her former team in this one. I mean, lots of goals. It's always fun when we have lots of goals. So Lynn Williams started the scoring early in the 12th minute. Jess McDonald, she had a memorable game for her and for North Carolina. She gets her 50th career goal. It was a set piece goal. Jess McDonald just timing it perfectly, redirecting the ball with her head, hitting the back of the net to go up 2-0 heading into halftime for Kansas City. And when we previewed this one, I wanted to see the defense that we saw from Kansas City in their last match against OL Reign. They did so well, and it's hard though. It's a hard team to stop North Carolina with all of the firepower that they had. And I think A-Rod was hungry to get a goal in this match. She got one in about the 64th minute. So back-to-back games for Amy Rodriguez, making it 3-0 for North Carolina. And Kansas City, they had opportunities in the second half. They did. They had a shot or two off the crossbar. Weber played really well for Kansas City in the midfield. When she got the ball, she was looking to go to goal and looking to be dangerous. But Casey Murphy, North Carolina goalkeeper, she does well. I mean, when the goalkeepers in this league, Sandra, when they come up with big games, it makes it very entertaining to watch. And I think this weekend we saw a lot of really good goalkeeping from Michelle Betos and Katie Lund and Casey Murphy, even Caitlin Rowland for Kansas City. Like, she had big stops. But
yeah, it's hard to believe that this scoreline could have been worse, actually.
Way worse. Davina should have had a goal at one point. She had a breakaway that she should have scored that Rowland had a great stop on, honestly.
Yeah, it's you see 4-0 and you're like, wow, that's a tough scoreline. And then you maybe like go through the game and you're like, wow, that actually could have been much worse.
Yeah,
like, hard to
probably
believe.
6. I would say 6. I'd give North Carolina 2 that they should have put away.
Yeah, hard to believe, but true. Unfortunate for Kansas City. You know, again, we were looking for the team and sort of seeing, you know, what type of response they were going to have coming off of a win, you know. And it just didn't happen on this night because North Carolina Courage, again, I think wanted to maybe make a little bit of a statement of their own, you know, going through that Olympic stretch of the season, missing so many of their Olympians, now starting to get them back. You know, head coach Paul Riley going on record during our previous segment talking about how Sam Mewis is going to be out for an extended period of time. And so seeing somebody like Amy Rodriguez get on the scoreboard, kind of in a run of play. She had already converted a penalty kick, but for this team, but to sort of see her get involved in the play with, you know, building chemistry with the team is very, very important and could end up being like a very, very significant piece for this team in their final stretch in this second half of the season, knowing that somebody like Sam Mewis is going to be out. Yes, it's 2 different positional players, but you're talking about a player with a lot of experience who can still provide a lot of things in the attack for this team. And it's scary to think about how you have a Lynn Williams returning into form. You have a Jess McDonald getting consistent minutes under her belt after dealing with illness, and now adding a Rodriguez into the mix who could just start to get a taste of blood in the water. It's a little bit
scary.
Just a little bit. So we'll see what comes out of from both these clubs in their following matches. But I'm excited to talk about this next one, Lisa, because if memory serves me correct, I do believe I had this as a draw, and I wanted it as a wild draw. I wasn't correct, but I got the wild part right. I'm going to claim that. We have OL Reign versus New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC 3-2. OL Reign come from behind and take this victory in front of their home fans. Again, another match where we're seeing the impact of Olympic players as they're returning to their teams. What a game from Roselle. Megan Rapinoe went out there and just did all of that, quite frankly. Ended up recording an assist on a goal and converting a couple penalty kicks, and OL Reign take this game in a big 3 points, 3-2 against Gotham, and also in the return of players, we're seeing the arrival of new OL Reign head coach Laura Harvey. Lisa, was this as wild to you as it was for me watching it?
We have to give a shout out because all the wildness, I think, comes from the players returning and the players that are happy to have them back. I mean, you just mentioned Laura Harvey, coach for OL Reign, stepping in there. Rose Lavelle was back. Jess Fishlock was in great form. Meg Rapinoe. Quinn was back for OL Reign, and Carli Lloyd for Gotham, who, after her retirement, now she's trying to make that victory lap, one final trophy to lift at the end of this regular season. So the stars were all back for this match, which honestly made it a really good one. I think in our preview, I discussed Ife Onumonu and how this player for Gotham is finding herself more consistently on the ball, more consistently hitting the back of the net. And when a player like Carli Lloyd returns to the lineup for Gotham and the pressure for Onumonu is taken off to do all of the heavy lifting herself, and she can lean on a player like Lloyd to play more defensively, to win the ball back, to be the energy and the star power in Gotham's center of the pitch. Onumonu looks wide open. She got a brace in this match, and she played really, really well. Not worldy shots like we've seen from her before, but she has been grinding, and the combination of Lloyd and Onumonu, it looks really good, Sandra. Onumonu opened this match, I think like the 9th or 10th minute, with a goal, a volley back to the net, and the smarts and the maturity of this play. It was a ball sent in. Carli Lloyd is challenging for it against like 3 or 4 OL Reign defenders. And Onumonu just backs off because she's not going to go in there and challenge that and mess up Lloyd's header and Lloyd's trajectory of the ball. But instead, she waits for the second ball to bounce to her. And that vision and level of maturity to watch that play unfold for Onumonu and then be able to find the back of the net on the volley strike after it shows that she is growing and that she is learning in this game to get better. You mentioned the penalty kicks. Did you see them, Sandra? Do you think they were real and they were legit? Ali Long, yeah, she got the one against Sofia Huerta. That was the first one on the side of the box. It was like a sidestep, and then Huerta falls down. Yeah, you think so?
Listen, by definition of the rule, it's a pen. It's a pen. Is there the argument? Is there the discourse that it was light, that maybe it could have been no call? Sure. I think the other part of that is, we've been hearing a lot this season and discussing a lot this season about the officiating. And I think, honestly, it's surprising for some people when a penalty is actually called. And I think
let alone two.
Yeah, let alone 2 of them in a game. So I think that has a lot to do with maybe some of the reaction coming out of this game as well. But as soccer goes, soccer does. And Megan Rapinoe stepped up and converted that. And I mean, who else on this team? I mean, she's a machine when it comes to converting these things. Had the penalties gone the other way, Carli Lloyd was going to be stepping up and taking both of these,
of course.
Penalty kicks. So it's just one of those things. It was just delightful to see.
Over Carli Lloyd's dead body, was anyone else going to take a penalty kick?
Yeah, it was just delightful to sort of see the veterans kind of having the impact that they were having in these games for their respective teams, and just sort of having Carli Lloyd return for Gotham and seeing Onumonu play alongside her. Watching her off the ball movement is so impressive. So it was watching what they were doing early in this game, I think maybe leaves a little bit more of a shock factor to look at the scoreline and sort of see how things kind of quickly turned in that second half, for OL Reign. And now Gotham is just kind of like, okay, this is happening. I don't think there was is this the first time that they could look at a scoreline and say that Gotham has quote unquote conceded 3 goals? It's just one of
Yes.
those it's just one of those things that we're going to look back at, maybe in this regular season, when we kind of look back and reflect on things as a whole. But points are points, and they're going OL Reign's way, and the table remains tight. But we
I
got
think,
one more
Sandra,
game. You got a final thought?
yeah, I have a final thought on this Gotham game. They were up at halftime, and
Yeah.
you cannot let up against a team like All Rain when they have all that star power with Lavelle and Fishlock, Rapinoe, Quinn. And I think Gotham mentally they took a little nap, because
Okay.
the long foul that was a penalty kick, it was lazy defending. She needs to keep sliding her feet and stay in front of where it said don't stab, and get that foul called there. And then also on the second penalty kick that happened, Rapinoe beats Johnson, and then Lewandowski slides over to cover. And that's like, you can't get beat on that, Johnson. It's 1v1 defending. Yes, you're going against Megan Rapinoe, but you can't get beat there. You're inside the box. You're at the top of the box. You know she's going to strike the ball. So they fell asleep in that moment. And maybe it was the being so comfortable having Carli Lloyd back and having that 2-goal lead that changed things for OL Reign.
Absolutely. You could look at everything happens in the second half for OL Reign. You look at it and you look at the timestamp of things in the order of which it played out, and you're just kind of like, man, that one most certainly got away. Like, quite literally, it did. Love that your final thought was absolutely some defensive coaching. I always love that.
I have to slide it in there.
You got to sneak it in. I love it so much. Sunday, fun day. The final match to wrap things up for NWSL action: Washington Spirit versus Orlando Pride. This one goes to Washington Spirit. They defeat Orlando Pride 2-1. But my goodness, the goals that came out of this match, Lisa, we had some top-notch worldies in this one, some real A1 bangers. We're talking about quite a goal from Brazilian international and the legend Marta, and we had another one from Ashley Sanchez. Really, the game winner for Washington Spirit. Man, coming into this game, really felt like the Spirit needed a win, and they went and they got themselves one. Lisa, what were your takeaways from this?
Sandra, in our preview for this one, I touched on the veterans and the rookies, the veterans for Orlando Pride and the rookies, and who is going to come out on top. And one thing that we need to remember in this league, and especially with really smart, intelligent players that the Washington Spirit has in Trinity Rodman and Ashley Sanchez and Ashley Hatch, is that they are little sponges in this league, just absorbing all the information and doing well and getting better and trying to grow every game. That's why they're not so consistent, because they're trying to get better every single match. And the maturity and the growth we saw from Trinity Rodman in this match. She had an opportunity on a breakaway. This was before the Ashley Sanchez goal. So the last goal to come in like the 89th minute or the 90th minute of this match. A transition play, the ball gets sprung forward to Trinity Rodman, who's in a foot race against the Pride defenders. She doesn't necessarily beat her fully, but the angle is bad for Rodman. She knows she has a defender right on her shoulder, and she's going up against Ashlyn Harris in goal. And this is where I looked at Trinity Rodman and I said, there it is. That's the smart skill of thinking about not just the next play ahead of you or the next move you're going to make, but maybe 4 or 5 ahead of that. Instead of going straight to goal, Trinity Rodman slows down and holds up the play for the second, and she sends the ball back across the top of the box to find ultimately Ashley Sanchez, who has an incredible goal on this one. But it goes back to Trinity Rodman at the start of this season. If she was on that breakaway and she thought she had a step on her defender, even though her angle was bad on goal, she would have tried to shoot it. Probably would have gone wide, saved by the defender, or not struck well enough so Ashlyn Harris would have been able to save it. So this is where her maturity level and her understanding of the game just grew and took maybe 3 or 4 steps forward in this match to know to just slow it down. She has teammates coming in behind and support her, and she doesn't need to do it all on her own. That was my biggest takeaway from this game.
No, I'm right there with you. It's been so impressive to watch the dynamic between those 3 forwards in particular. The team has going through some things right in the back burner, but outside of this, what is actually on the pitch. And for this team to come in here and get this win, it was big for them. It boosts them back into the standings, higher into the playoff picture. And it's a very, very narrow race, so it was a very crucial 3 points for them. But this is a team that's still operating with an interim head coach, and when you're looking at a game like this, I'm sorry, I'm gonna put it out there, but you're looking at these players, these three players, doing what they did tonight against Orlando. And I don't know how you're a head coach and you're not looking at this team and thinking, maybe I want to coach this team. Maybe you want to give the Washington Spirit a call and talk about coaching them and pitch yourself to potentially coach this team. Because how do you look at this roster and doing what they're doing right now and staying in this mix of the regular season in this top 6 standings and just say, maybe we can go ahead and do something special here with this core of players? So big win for the Spirit. And it definitely made the standings look and shake out a little bit differently. I swear, it's week to week, Lisa. This is why we always end out the episodes with these standings to give everybody an update. It's definitely been very, very, very close. And for a little while there, we had Portland Thorns kind of have a little bit of a gap on that first place. And while they're still in first place, that gap of points is not so wide anymore. Let's run these down for everybody. Let's take a look. We have Portland Thorns in first place with 29 points. In second place is North Carolina Courage with 27 points. Washington Spirit with their win are now in third place with 22 points. OL Reign are in fourth place with 22 points. Gotham FC dropped to fifth place with 21 points. Orlando Pride dropped to sixth place with 21 points. Chicago Red Stars on the outside looking in seventh place with 21 points as well. In eighth place are Houston Dash with 18 points. Racing Louisville FC sit in ninth place with 16 points. And in 10th place, Kansas City NWSL with 7 points. Lisa, 1 through 8, it's narrow, it's close, and we're going to have to keep an eye on it looking forward and moving ahead.
Portland's still at the top, though, Sandra. That's fun to watch them. And Chicago, they've dropped a bit, which I'm a little surprised about. But hey, that's how things shake out. They'll be back at it, I think, Wednesday. Another busy week, Sandra, yes, with some midweek matches coming up. But I love that things are constantly moving around. And as a reminder for everyone, the Washington game, the last game that we just talked about, Washington versus Orlando, there were a few worldy goals in that one. Head over to our YouTube page, Attacking Third, and you can watch those full-time highlights to catch all those goals and all of the great action that we saw this weekend.
Not just full-time highlights, you guys, we have extended highlights, y'all. Extended highlights on this. So if you're looking for a match recap, maybe you want a little bit extra besides the goal. So instead of the little 2-minute package, you're going to get like 10-minute packages for highlights over on Attacking Third. So check that out if you get a chance. I want to thank everybody for joining us and listening to all of our recaps today. A quick reminder again to follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to your podcast. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review with a question, and we'll answer it on one of our upcoming segments. We're also available as videos, so please subscribe to us on YouTube. Just visit youtube.com/Attacking Third. We will be back Wednesday with NWSL news and more, and answering those questions that you're leaving behind for us. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.